And we're back live on Tuesday, February 24th in House Transportation. And we are looking at, we heard from Green Mountain Transit last week, well, a couple different times during the public transit several times so far this session. And my perception of, they have come to us with some language, a request that our legislative council is going to review with us today, and it was based on testimony and a request from Green Mountain Transit regarding sort of the assessments that they are in their ability to negotiate and raise funds. Did hear some testimony about their effort to work with different entities in their community to hopefully raise ridership and raise funds, which there's something we could do to help. I certainly hope that we can do that. So you should find an email or maybe under Damien, the posting of this language. I suspect he's going to bring up points. And with that, Damien, thanks for coming back in again and again and again. And you can start walking us through a request for language in the T-bill.
Right. Great. Well, thanks for having me. For the record, I'm Damien Leonard from the Office of Legislative Counsel. So as the chair mentioned, Green Mountain Transit came in with a request last week and began talking to you about this. And then the request was passed along to me, and I've put it into some draft legislative language, which you'll find both on the webpage and on the screen behind me. And so what this would do is this is amending the charter for Green Mountain Transit. So in the current annual budget and assessments section, which is section 7 of that charter, we would be adding at the end of subsection A, a new sentence to say that the proposed budget may include, in addition to revenues from fares and other sources, anticipated voluntary local match contributions, grants, donations, and other non-assessment revenues that may be offered by a member municipality or another public or private source. It then goes on the next page to add a new subsection F that would permit the authority to seek and accept voluntary local match contributions, and then provide that notwithstanding the formula for apportionment, the authority may accept those voluntary local match contributions from a member municipality or another public or private source for the purposes of meeting federal, state, or other grant matching requirements, and supporting authority programs, capital projects, and operations. And then finally, providing that a voluntary local match contribution accepted would be in addition to any assessment required pursuant to this section and would not reduce, offset, or otherwise modify the assessment for the member municipality pursuant to the formula for apportionment, unless the formula is amended as provided in that section. So these are voluntary amounts that are in addition to and separate from the assessed contributions. It also provides authority for things like grants, donations, and other non-assessment revenues that may be offered to Green Mountain Transit. So this is sort of broad. It's two things. It's broad authority to accept amounts that may be available, like a grant or something like that. And then it's more narrowly tailored authority to accept these voluntary local match contributions. And I think the important word there is voluntary contributions. So the member municipality has to choose to give this amount. This is different than the regular assessment, which the member municipality may or may not want to pay in the full amount, but which as a member, they're required to pay. Questions? Well, this is my easiest committee hearing of the day. Thanks, folks. See you tomorrow.
For the committees, I'm sorry, Representative Keiser, thank you.
Just a curiosity, this is background. Damien. So they were not allowed or wouldn't, they were not able to collect outside money besides their normal funding from the state?
So I don't know the full background on this. Oftentimes when we get some of this cleanup language, some of it is just cleanup to reflect. There is an assessment process for their member municipalities. And this is providing for additional voluntary local match contributions and also clarifying how they affect, or in this case, don't affect the formula for determining assessments. I don't know whether up to this point, Green Mountain Transit has accepted funding that's not specifically called out in its charter. Oftentimes what happens with language like this, and again, I don't know the background on this, is that we've been doing something like this for years, and someone asks a question, we say, well, the law doesn't address that. We should go in and clarify the law and clean this up.
So this is for monies, the dollars.
Mhm.
Dollars. Would there be any advantage to putting in like kind exchanges or that type of?
I would defer to the transit authority on that. They know what's available to them and what their restrictions are under under the regulations, both at the federal level and state level that govern their operation, better than I do. So
I wouldn't want to put it in my trust.
I definitely can't advise you on what to put or not put into your trust, so.
Representative Pouch was up next, and then Representative White.
So I was a member of the Green Mountain Transit Board for a number of years and have been off now for a couple of years. They haven't had this ability, as far as I know. But, you know, there are organizations that will buy that when they were charging fees and now are charging fees, will buy passes for employees, but it's a little different. So they're just helping the employees buy the pass.
Representative White, I'm sorry, I don't want to comment on that yet. If you had more set with that, then Representative White, you had a question?
I just had a comment to say I'm comfortable with the language.
I reached out to Vermont League of Cities and Towns, our normal person, it was not person we interacted most with in the committee wasn't here, but they shared it with amongst their policy people. Their comment was that as long as it's voluntary, they seem to think that it seems to make a lot of sense. I thought the question about in kind is kind of interesting to float. I had asked for suggestions to who else we might need to hear from. That's where League of Cities and Towns name came up. And I asked them if they thought there was anywhere that we should go. And they said that they felt that Burlington was a pretty significant contributor to Green Mountain Transit and has funding in a lot of their pieces, and that we potentially could ask if they wanted to comment more directly. That's as far as making sure we hear from everybody. As far as the comment about whether they could do it before or not, I thought that their testimony last week that they had said that they had felt that they were able to, but they wanted to clarify it. Sort of like they had come to us relating to the idea of forming a fundraising nonprofit previously. They want to make it more directly obvious that they can raise funds outside of, and I hope that it is very much a recognition that the state fund money is not unlimited to go to Green Mountain Transit for transit entirely within their area. Representative McCoy?
So, trying to understand this, the Board of Commissioners comes up with a budget, which is then each town that's in the Green Mountain Transit area is assessed a certain amount to make up that budget. So this is over and above that budget.
It could be that. It could also be, we need additional support for a route that goes through your municipality. Would you be willing to contribute to help us meet the local match to pull down this federal grant, whatever it is, to get this service? So I can imagine any number of circumstances where it could be an individual municipality thing. It could be all the members. It could vary. I did want to clarify my testimony earlier. While you were talking, I checked the powers that the Transit Authority has under existing statute. They do have the authority already to accept gifts or grants or loans of money or other property, and to enter into contracts, leases, or other transactions with any federal agency of the state, any agency of the state, or any other public body of the state, including municipalities, school districts, or other authorities. And they also have authority to borrow money or issue bonds under the statute there. So they do have some authority already, but this clarifies additional authority, particularly when it's a voluntary assessment or a voluntary local contribution and how that affects assessments. Because you can imagine that if one municipality decides to kick in an extra 20% because they're supporting construction of new bus shelters or something, and this is entirely hypothetical, that you wouldn't want to then open the conversation about, well, does this decrease everyone else's assessment? Especially if it's over and above the operating budget. But
Yeah, it is. And another example, it's always possible another municipality will decide to give more because of something. I don't know that that's happened. It may have, but I can say Beta Technologies is saying we got so many employees. Can we get better bus service? And so they're having discussions. I don't know what will happen with that. But that might be just a hypothetical where, they might say, hey, we're going to help fund this. And they wouldn't want the South Burlington assessment to go down by that.
I think with what Representative Pouch is saying, Green Mountain Transit cited 3 examples in their request for this language to help clarify. I do think they acknowledge that they do have the ability to do this. This they feel like is worth the further expanding. They cited 3 examples. Beta Technologies is one of them, is saying that they might want to help Green Mountain Transit if they're able to help tailor services to get people in and out of their campus. The Burlington High School is in the supervisory district, or however that is run. Burlington, a lot of students ride the bus. They want them to look at potentially coming across North Avenue and into the school property. That would involve an increase in operating expenses and a delay on the line. So how would that support look itself if the Burlington school were able to, and they also, so it was, the UVM Medical Center would like a bus route to come onto their campus and drop people at the front door as opposed to the back on Colchester, but up in the front where the actual interaction is really most happening. So that was the 3 examples they cited, that should those 3 entities be able to negotiate with Green Mountain Transit in a way that would perhaps improve their services, would also perhaps be support. They don't want it to impact their budget and matching monies and issues, that this is for them to go above and beyond to help solve more of their financial problems than potentially impact it. So those were 3 examples they put in their testimony. I I made it very clear they need to do something to help improve ridership and seek opportunities along every route to support the service. Before I would be any more receptive, that it matters what I think, but receptive to a straight state money. This seems to be in the direction of them helping their riders and helping themselves. So, and what I'm looking for, is there anything in here that we're missing that somebody else would take away from some entity in some way? As opposed to just giving them the opportunity to, or to more explicitly laying out the opportunity for them to negotiate these deals. Am I missing anything that's on the other negative side, that some other party might be injured in some way or would have testimony or possibility on this? And I'm only looking for members if they are looking for any members that might have anything. If Vermont leads the cities in town, and possibly the city of Burlington are the only things that I've heard. Anybody else have any other ideas?
So I just wanna, so say that happened, say UVM, which is in Burlington, South Burlington. So UVM's in Burlington and they want an additional bus route for the students. And they voluntarily pay money to have that bus route run. That is not going to affect the assessments of any other municipality within this GMTA, nor will it affect Burlington's assessment, correct? This is over and above, like, because their budget, but the following year, if this continues, I mean, I'm assuming it will be absorbed into their budget. And
Yeah, I can't speak to the impact on their budget in the out years. The way this is worded is that the proposed budget for any year can include additional revenues from anticipated local match contributions, grants, donations, et cetera. And non-assessment revenues, which could include an ongoing agreement with, this is something we've talked about in your counterpart in the Senate is, there's a ski resort that has an agreement with one of its local transit operator where they pay a certain amount per year to get services at the resort, to help with the traffic issues there for both their employees and so forth. And so that non-assessment revenue could be something where there's an ongoing agreement, but I can't speak to if the agreement is structured so that there's more of an upfront payment or if it has some sort of carry-on effect, how that would affect the out years. I wouldn't want to speculate on that. I think that's a better question for them. Do they see one of these potential scenarios having a carry-on effect where the assessments grow because they've expanded service?
so if they accept it, can I continue?
Yeah.
They accept a payment. Does it say anywhere in here where they'll enter into an agreement with it?
No, the language isn't that prescriptive, so they do have the authority under their basic powers to contract with public and private entities.
Okay.
And then this clarifies authority to accept and budget around this additional non-assessment and non-revenue or non-fare revenue. So that's what this is doing, is it's basically clarifying that they can accept these other revenues, budget around them, and that these other revenues are not going to affect the formula for apportionment.
For other units.
Yes.
Okay.
Does anybody else have anything right now? Otherwise, I'd like to hear from the agency and public transit administrator from Ross, public transit program manager, one of our regular guests here in House Transportation. Damien, if you don't mind staying, right? We can stay in the chair and we'll bring Ross in and we'll hear from the agency and for public transit on this. On the overall language and on any of the comments or questions any of the members have brought up. So Ross, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Please share.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ross McDonald, I'm the Public Transit Program Manager here at VTrans. And yes, as stated, the idea of allowing for more revenue sources to generate non-federal funds for services contracted is something that we appreciate GMT looking into. Certainly, a scenario that was provided to us would be, a company is hiring 1,000 people in Burlington in the next couple of years, and they may want shuttle services to and from their location. And is that an opportunity for contracted services to generate dollars, like as the gentleman was talking about, similar to ski areas, where they can provide some dollars for a service, and it could be an overmatch of the non-federal requirement, and that could allow for those funds to be otherwise used for non-federal, as that would go into their reserves. So the idea that GMT is trying to broaden the opportunities to generate additional revenues outside of the assessment process is one that we support. And we have no recommendations in terms of changes or revisions here.
Okay. Pretty straightforward. Oh, Representative Pop.
And I think I know the answer to this question, but Ross, you could say other public transit agencies in the state do this regularly.
That's correct. That is the funding formula is less prescriptive throughout the state, and so they're able to work with large employers, resorts, those types of entities to generate more non-federal match, in addition to what most folks depend on primarily through community obligations through town meeting day. So yeah, this was just allowing them, and I think Clayton was talking about this, the GM at GMT last week, about their ability to become more flexible, like the 5311 rural services. So I think you're right in line with their expectations, Representative Batch.
Okay. I don't want to make it more complicated. If we're not missing something, it'll be out there and people can hear it. People will certainly, if something comes up between now and, Friday, I want to hear about it, but
I moved to put it, it's 60, whatever it is, it's 60.
we don't have a number yet, right?
We don't have a number.
Yeah.
We don't have a number. Let's say 63. Let's I have that in my mind. We don't want to put it in that one.
Just kidding. So we'll,
Whatever version of
do
the
that.
email is correct.
We'll do that on Friday and we mark up the rest of it. If there are concerns between now and then, we'll have you do that on Friday and we'll, we need to hear about it and we need to hear from anybody else that might be, out listening and we'll, grab it from there. So. We're gonna do that on Friday when we mark it up and add them, then I guess, or we can say.
Yeah, well, I mean, just put
We
it
can do
in the
that way.
draft,
Well, I guess
whatever
then
again.
still-
Put it in the draft.
We can certainly instruct our legislative council to find a spot for it in the T-bill, that we're gonna continue to mark up on Friday. And so assuming everyone who had thumbs up from now, if there's any reason that anything changes, we're all on board with this. I do believe it shows that Green Mountain Transit recognizes they need to help us or help themselves or help themselves to help us. We appreciate that. Okay. With that, thank you, Ross, for joining us. Thank you, Damien, for joining us. For the committee and for the public that may or may not be interested, tonight is the public hearing for the Vermont State Inspections run by the Senate Transportation Committee. So you have some work committee time and an opportunity for those of you I know that are coming from 5 to 7 or viewing, et cetera, that you can do what you have to do between now and then, because a lot of the members will be involved or participating or watching or whatnot from 5 to 7 tonight for what we'll take on when the miscellaneous motor vehicle or any other action done by the Senate gets over to us after crossover. So that is why the gap for this afternoon. It gives you the opportunity to, for those of you going to be involved tonight between 5 and 7, we'll be picking up from there. So we are adjourned for this afternoon.